What is up, FA Nation? Happy Thursday. Happy to be back with you for another Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS live stream. As you can tell, John and Pemba, another day off today. Man, does that guy ever work?
NBA
I'm not
DFS
fully
live.
sure. But luckily, we have a great, we lose guys. Someone slides in just as qualified. Steve Pimental here with us again. What's up, Steve?
Don't oversell it, James. I don't want them to expect too much from me.
I'm not overselling anything, brother. If anything, I'm underselling here. So we just got a lot of news prior to lock
Hmm.
that kind of shook a lot of things up. I mean, we knew Kawhi Leonard was going to miss today's game, and from last night, as soon as the game ended, we thought Kyle Lowry was going to miss the game, but alas. Kyle Lowry is now playing and he is now starting. There's no word on minutes restriction. There's no word on anything but Kyle Lowry playing. So, if you have lineups, you just crumple them up and you throw them away and you start again. But we are still kind of waiting on Joel Embiid. Apparently, he's been getting a massage on the sidelines, and he's had lower back. He did miss shoot around, but so did Wilson Chandler. Wilson Chandler's playing. So there's no official word on Embiid yet. Kind of seems like he's gonna play, but who knows? We are waiting on Will Barton. He was excused from shoot around this morning, and we are waiting on Gary Harris. Other than that, there's not like news that we are necessarily waiting on. For when we head over to Vegas, Philly, Indiana is 224.5, 4-point favorites for Indiana. That line didn't move at all, so I don't even think Vegas has an idea, or they just suspect Joel Embiid plays. Sacramento, Charlotte, 229. Charlotte, 2.5-point favorites at home. We know we love Kemba and the boys at home. Phoenix and Toronto, 223. Toronto only 8.5-point favorites. That hasn't updated since the Kyle Lowry news. So I'm going to keep an eye on that throughout the live stream, see if that line moves at all, because 8.5 is reasonable. And, Toronto's going to be popular in cash today. Even Phoenix is going to be popular today, too. So that's probably going to be one of the more popular game stacks. Chicago, Denver, 213, but Denver 13.5-point favorites on the road. I don't think that's going to be close. Chicago's losers of 8 straight. They've lost 5 straight road games. It's they're in complete disarray, and they're without Wendell Carter, who I'm not saying is the best, but he's a decent defender when he's not too foul happy. So
He's better than Cristiano Felicio.
right, he's definitely better than Chris. He's better than most of the other Bulls front court mates that they can replace him with. Just to note, Bobby Portis did practice with the first team in shoot around this morning. So they haven't released their starting lineup, but he did practice with their first unit, and he was on a 28-minute restriction last time. So sub 5K if he starts, I think that's a nice play. We'll get there. And the late night hammer, 9:35 Eastern start. Lakers OKC 227, but OKC 10-point favorites at home. So very risky there. Not to say the Lakers can't keep it close, but they have been a much different team without the King. So, but before we jump into breaking down the slate, Steve has a little message for you guys.
It's not a little message, it's a big message from our friends at Prize Picks. We've been telling you about them for the last couple of weeks. And just like we did on Tuesday, we're going to make a couple of Prize Picks live on our live stream. So if you want to go to myprizepicks.com/fantasy alarm and you can play the game along with us. You can also get the Fantasy Alarm baseball draft guide for free. You also get a free entry with a $50 cash prize. And in case that wasn't enough free stuff, you also get a $100 instant deposit match. So go to myprizepicks.com/alarm. And some picks that I'm looking at right now, not quite as confident as I was on Tuesday, but a couple of Tuesday's picks didn't go so well, so maybe that's a good thing. Definitely like the Domantas Sabonis under, just with Miles Turner back. He's only getting like 20 minutes a game. Ben Simmons would definitely be over if Joel Embiid is out, but we're kind of operating under the assumption he would play. So I think I would go under 47.2 fantasy points for Ben Simmons, especially, the Pacers, as I'm sure we're going to talk about, are such a good defensive team. those are the two. I'm probably only playing a two-pick entry, but the great thing about Prize Picks is you can play 2, 3, or 4-pick entries. All you do is pick over under the projections, just like I was doing, and the more picks you make, obviously the higher the payout is. But it's just that easy and fun, and that's the reason that we love it. So again, go to myprizepicks.com/alarm to get started. That's myprizepicks.com/alarm.
I'm definitely going under on Sabonis as well, by the way. I am not a fan. It doesn't get any easier with Joel Embiid defending, not let alone the fact that Thad Young in a revenge game kind of going to block him, and we have Miles Turner back, who they signed. He's the one who got the max contract, so not Sabonis.
Right.
So let's just jump right into the slate. Starting at point guard, Russell Westbrook, top price player on the slate. I think he's a must in cash. It's very hard right now on DraftKings depending on your stance on Norman Powell, depending on if you think you can fit him into your lineups, whether or not you want to use Russell Westbrook, at least on DraftKings. At FanDuel, it's easy. You can still play Norm, and you can just drop his score if he stinks. What's your take on Westbrook? Where are you playing him? Cash, GPPs? Like, what are your thoughts on Russ today, Steve?
I'm with you as far as FanDuel. It's harder on DraftKings. And you also mentioned the blowout potential with the Lakers being on the road. So I'm probably not quite as high on Russ as I would be on a normal slate. I got him into a DraftKings lineup that also had Norman Powell and Chandler Hutchison, and I kind of hate myself. So, right. I might be looking to go down, but, as we're going to talk about, I don't love the point guard slate anyway. So, I like Russ a lot, but I don't think he's quite a must play.
Okay, I'm going to play him in cash. But I definitely think he's fadeable in tournaments, because there are two guys. I'll even throw in De'Aaron Fox, 3 guys underneath him that you could definitely pivot to. I mean, if we do get official word that Embiid's out, we're pivoting to Ben Simmons. Period.
Yes.
We're going to Ben Simmons. We're not even thinking about it. I think that's a very strong pivot. Yes, Indiana's a good defensive team, but Simmons is going to have the ball in his hands quite a bit without Embiid. We've seen it all year long when Embiid's missed, and I think Kemba Walker is an elite play, elite pivot off Russell Westbrook as well. Back-to-back 31 and 33 actual point games. He scored 52 fantasy points his last outing. And, we just saw this Sacramento-Charlotte game. And did it underwhelm? Yes, it only scored 204 points. And that game was also projected in the 220s. But Kemba went for 31 actual. And he's a guy who generally gives us pretty good peripheral stats. I don't suspect he goes just 1 rebound and 4 assists again. He's too good to just give us nothing else. So I think if we're talking about that next tier, I would probably rank them right now. Let's say Embiid plays Walker, Simmons, Fox. Do you agree?
I'd go Walker, Fox, Simmons, but it's close.
Okay. You definitely have to consider salary in that too. So I don't blame you for going Fox. Ben Simmons is very pricey on FanDuel, and he's over 9K on DraftKings too. So you can save going down to Fox. So I don't necessarily agree with you. I'm very intrigued by Kyle Lowry, to be perfectly honest with you. I guess I don't know what to think. He missed a lot of time. He missed nearly 2 weeks, and then he's been back for like 4 games. He hasn't really missed a beat in terms of playing time. The usage rate should be there. He averages nearly 1.3 fantasy points per minute. I think he's also another route to go in cash games, to be quite honest with you. I don't think that he's like a must play, but I think, he's playing Phoenix, and Phoenix is not a good defensive team. They don't defend point guards well either. And we know Lowry just has an uptick in everything across the board without Kawhi Leonard. So, how are you prioritizing Lowry now that we know he's playing?
He's gonna be in almost all of my lineups. Just for the reasons you said. The assists alone when Kawhi is out is just kind of ridiculous.
And the assists, the assists have been there with Kawhi. The scoring is where he kind of separates himself with without Kawhi. He reverts back to like when he was playing alongside DeMar DeRozan. I don't know what Lowry has gotten into Lowry this year in terms of scoring, but he's not the same. But that doesn't necessarily deter me because we're without Kawhi Leonard here. So I think Lowry has some upside for sure. I think he's cash viable as well. Jamal Murray, tournaments only. Lonzo Ball, tournaments only. Chris Dunn, tournaments only. Change my mind? No? Or you agree?
No, I'm thinking we should just get a sign that just says Jamal Murray tournaments only. Because at every live stream, we'll just hold the sign up for a second and put it down. I mean, he's going to have a 35 actual point game one of these days. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
But, when it comes is anyone's guess.
Right. It's exactly how I view it. Darren Collison, fine for tournaments, I think, as well. Okay, so Van Vliet is starting. Do you still have interest in him? I still think he's viable. We've seen him start plenty of times alongside Kawhi hasn't played back-to-backs all year, so this isn't new territory. Van Vliet starts alongside Lowry. Like, do you still have interest in Van Vliet? And if so, like, is it cash game? Is it GPP? Or is it both?
It's mostly cash. I think his upside is limited because he's not going to have the ball in his hands the entire game. But absolutely cash. I mean, we were kind of saying the same thing in the subscriber chat before we hopped on. He's going to be on the floor. He's going to start. If anything, he might get more spot up threes playing off the ball. So for sure, he's a cash play.
So he went. In the last game that Kawhi missed, he played 35 minutes. He took 10 shots. He scored 12 points and dished out 8 assists. So, 2 rebounds as well, no other peripherals. About value, about 5x. So I agree. I think it's more cashy. I don't know if we get that 7 to 8x that we're looking for, but it's possible. But I'm kind of with you, more cash game play. Other than that, like, do you like anyone down here? I think the news about Embiid kind of impacts TJ McConnell. I think McConnell would become more of a play if Embiid sat because it would move. Simmons would play more power forward center defensively, which puts McConnell on the floor more. Do you agree with that? And then if you do, like, where else are you looking, if anywhere? Because I don't see a lot of other spots on this slate.
Yeah, I'm with you. McConnell's a play if Embiid sits, and that's the only time you're playing. I don't know. I don't hate it. I don't like anyone at that price. I guess if I had to pick someone besides Van Vliet, it would be McConnell or DeAnthony Melton. But, that's pretty much only if somehow I get to the end of my lineup, and those are my only options. Okay,
I tend to agree with that. Let's jump over to shooting guard, where at the top we have Devin Booker and Victor Oladipo. I think Booker is firmly in play without Kawhi Leonard. He's an elite scorer, so it's pretty hard to ignore. Joel Embiid is still questionable. Another update of Joel Embiid being just questionable. Wonderful, cool. I'm so happy. So I think Devin Booker firmly in play for tournaments. He's an elite scorer. It's pretty hard to ignore. Victor Oladipo has had 2 really good games against Philly this year. And it's weird to say because Jimmy Butler is there, but I don't think Jimmy Butler is the same defender as he once was. So I think Oladipo also for tournaments. We're not playing Jimmy Butler. You can on DraftKings because he's cheap, but I would only really play him if Embiid. I only really have interest in him if Embiid sits. I don't necessarily have a strong take on him. I don't really want to attack Victor Oladipo and Indiana defense too much. Probably Embiid. Honestly, if he plays, that'd probably be the only spot I would be really willing to go. So I think they're all tournament plays. And John and I talked about this in the pod. Shooting guard is bleak. I think Jeremy Lamb is probably safe enough for cash at his price tag. I think Buddy Hield is a tournament play. Other than that, like, where at shooting guard are you looking, Steve?
I like Hield a little better for cash than you do, in part because, as you said, it's not a great slate for shooting guards. And I also just want to point out Devin Booker's really cheap. Well, I should say really cheap, but he's cheaper on FanDuel. So I'm almost looking at it like Booker on FanDuel and Oladipo on DraftKings just because of price, because they're close enough that I'm just going to let the price be the tiebreaker. Going down, I think JJ Redick for cash, though I liked him better when it looked like Embiid was going to be out. I'm with you on Jeremy Lamb. In addition to the Jamal Murray sign, we should also have a sign that says the Denver Nuggets guards are in play if Harris and Will Barton are out. But again, we're not going to know about that until late. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I think, for a GPP, just because he's going to start again, and it's just a matter of if he's going to hit shots or not. Who did I miss?
I think I like KCP in all formats. He's cheap. He's going to start. The one exploitable position for OKC is shooting guard. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So I think he's viable for all formats. He's going to start. He's going to play 30 minutes. I am very intrigued by Norman Powell. I'm just going to bring him up now. I just want to get it out of the way. He's small forward eligible on FanDuel, but he's shooting guard, small forward. So the last two games that Kawhi has sat, he's played 32 and 25 minutes. He has kind of been the one value play all day that I've had locked into all my lineups. The last game that he did play 32 minutes, OG Anunoby was there for 24. And OG Anunoby is not playing tonight. So I actually think it opens up a path for Powell. Now, I guess my one concern is Danny Green only played 19 minutes in that game. Why? I don't have the answer why he only played 19 minutes in that game. But again, the game before that Kawhi sat, Danny Green played 25 minutes and Powell played 25 minutes. So if you want to play Powell, I think he's more of a play on FanDuel. I still think you can play him all formats because he's $100 off min salary and you could drop his score. DraftKings gets a little more risky for me. Would you play Norman Powell in cash on DraftKings, knowing he's not starting and knowing Kyle Lowry's back?
Yes. Yes, I have him in a cash lineup on DraftKings. As you said, OG Anunoby is out in addition to Kawhi Leonard being out. So Powell's going to, he and Green are pretty much going to get all of the small forward minutes. Both of them can also play shooting guard when Fred VanVleet, when he sits or when he plays the point. So there are a lot of ways for Powell to get in the lineup. And also, if it is going to be a blowout, which is certainly a possibility, I think Powell's going to play. He's going to stay on the floor in a blowout too. So you have that little added advantage. So, I'm still playing him on DraftKings, though your point about being able to drop his score on FanDuel is well taken.
Anyone else at shooting guard? You ready to go over to small forward?
Let's do it.
At small forward, the top price player is Paul George. He seems a little angry at the Lakers for choosing LeBron over him, which is kind of silly because, I'm not saying Paul George isn't one of the top 10 best players in the NBA or 15, but, it's LeBron. I'm picking LeBron at his advanced stage over Paul George as well if I'm the Lakers. But, he went for 37 actual and 53 fantasy points. I think if you are pivoting off Westbrook, I think Paul George is a nice route to go. I also think you could pair him in a tournament. I think you pair the two. They correlate so well together. Mm-hmm. It's not one goes off and one doesn't. They could both go off in the same game because, Russ does so much. If Russ isn't scoring and Paul George is, Russ is usually the one giving Paul George the ball for the assist. So I think Paul George is an elite play. The rest of the position isn't great. I think TJ Warren is underpriced, and I think he benefits greatly from no Kawhi Leonard as well. He won't have to see Kawhi. Pascal Siakam is a good defender, especially considering Warren is playing a lot of power forward. But it's really let the slate dictate who we play. Small forward is weak. Warren is cheap, really, really cheap. And, he's given us about 30 fantasy points in 35 minutes a game over his last 5, which is 5x on both sites, which is perfect for a cash game. I think Warren I think that would be my one cash play from Phoenix if I were to pick anyone, because he plays blowouts. Phoenix plays their guys in blowouts. I mean, unless it becomes 40,
Right.
that's when it gets crazy. But I don't think Toronto without Kawhi is going to blow anyone out by 40 on the second night of a back-to-back, especially after a tough loss yesterday. Where else are you looking at small forward, Steve?
If Will Barton plays, then I would go with him just because of the price, and I think he was up to 23 minutes in his last game,
Yep.
so I'm kind of assuming if he does play that he'll at least get to that, if not surpass it. The one guy I've been on the fence and I really need your advice is Kelly Oubre Jr., because he was great when Booker was out. He was good in his last game with Booker back, but only played 24 minutes. So what do you think about Oubre?
I think that's probably my concern with him. I mean, it can go with Barton too. Like, they're both over 5K and they're both not guaranteed minutes. So I think Oubre is a very talented player. And he was drafted because of that, like where he was drafted, because he's very talented. But if he's only going to be playing 24 minutes at 5'2", I'd almost rather go down and just, say screw it and play Powell, take a shot on him, or play Jabari Parker, who's in the rotation now for Chicago on DK at 3.6K. So especially if that game becomes a blowout, which, 13.5 in Denver, the Bulls suck. So I suspect Parker to get that same amount of time that, like, let's project Oubre at 24 minutes, right? I think we can maybe project Parker around 20, 21, and I'd feel more comfortable with Parker's 21 minutes than Oubre's because of price. And that's really what it comes down to. Like, if Oubre was Parker's price, I'd play Oubre in all formats at 24 minutes because he has that ability. But he's not. That's the thing that separates. So, like, I think you can do it in a tournament. I'm just allocating my funds elsewhere because we have guys like Westbrook, because we have guys like Paul George that we're looking to spend up on. If you're fading Westbrook, you want to get like Kemba and Paul George, or Kemba and, Kyle Lowry and Paul George, or something like that. So I don't hate it. If you're doing a fair and balanced build, it'd be easier. But if you're using like Westbrook, I'm not forcing Kelly Oubre into my lineups.
That's fair. And I like your point about Jabari Parker, especially. I mean, is there a better, garbage player than Jabari?
No.
If he's out there in garbage time, he's going to shoot every time the ball touches his hands. Yeah. And then I don't know if there's anyone else you wanted to mention at small forwards, but Chandler Hutchison, we just kind of have to mention. His played at least 25 minutes in 4 or 5 straight games, and has been much better the last 2 games. He's going to start again, and I mean, that team's garbage, but at that price, you could do worse.
Yeah, he's going to stay in the corner and knock down a couple threes, and if he squeaks us out 20 fantasy points, there's nothing wrong with that for a cash game.
Exactly.
So I'm okay with it. Moving on to power forward, I'm not paying that price tag for Domantas Sabonis. I see a lot of people in chat wanting to. I get it. There's upside for Sabonis, and he's always someone who, on a per-minute basis, that can put up a lot of points. I don't think we need to do it. He might only play 20 minutes tonight. So at 7K, I'd rather go down and take a shot on someone like Kyle Kuzma, who we've seen with 40 actual point upside, someone who's going to play 30 minutes regardless of scenario because they need him to. There's no LeBron. He has a giant usage rate without LeBron. So I'd rather play Kuzma. I'd rather play Ibaka, even though Ibaka's minutes on back-to-backs are way down, only like 23 a game on second legs of back-to-backs. Very productive in those 23 minutes, but still, 23 minutes is not something that's very scary for 6'5". It's kind of like the Oubre thing. I'm still all over Pascal Siakam because he's just a fantasy point per minute guy. He's super safe. Was he bad yesterday against Boston? Sure. He is not impacted at all by back-to-backs. His numbers are actually improving. If you look at his numbers, he averages his most points per game on 0 days rest. There's 8 instances. He averaged almost 16 points per game. He's young. He's going to play all the minutes. And just like you mentioned about Powell and Green playing small forward, Siakam can play any forward position and center when Ibaka comes off the floor. So I think Siakam is one of my. He's been in my core all day, and Lowry didn't really change that. If you're looking elsewhere, where are you looking? I think Thad Young is interesting in tournaments because there's a revenge factor there, and he's been good lately. He's been good against Philly too, 32 fantasy points per game. Other than him, like where else are you looking at power forward?
Yeah, and I like Thad Young in cash too because Wilson Chandler doesn't play defense, and he's going to have more minutes and a cheaper price than Sabonis. Other power forwards, Lauri Markkanen's another GPP. Him and Jamal Murray. They're both GPP plays, and on the days they knock down shots, they're going to go off for you. Marvin Bagley the third, kind of the same way. I don't know. I don't love the usage with him, but there's obviously talent there, and he's going to get 29 to 30 minutes. I can't remember if it was before we went on or not, but you mentioned Bobby Portis was running with the starters in shoot around. That to me, that's just a GPP play just based on the total for that game and the fact that his team is terrible and how many minutes are they really going to run out with him and Lauri Markkanen? I mean, are they really going to have one of those guys try to guard Nikola Jokic? I don't know. The Bulls will do anything, so you can't put anything past the Bulls, but that's risky. And then we already mentioned Jabari Parker.
So I am going out on a limb and I'm going to say that Portis starts because there's no reason to work out with the starters. And then it's like, hey, you know what? Thanks for your participation in practice, but you're going to go to the bench, Because of that, and because I think they want to get Portis 28 minutes, I think they want to get him to the point where they're comfortable when people are out, like Wendell Carter tonight. I'm okay with him in cash because he is such a fantasy point per minute guy. I mean, we saw him in 17 minutes the other night take 11 shots. 11. He took 11 shots in 17 minutes, and he only made one, and he still put up 15 fantasy points. So, we're only looking for about 22 to 23 fantasy points at his price tag. I'm okay with him in cash as long as he's starting. I'm honestly, they're this whole Robin Lopez thing where they're refusing to trade him. He's getting in fights with Chris Dunn. I think he's gone out of the rotation. Same with Felicio. I think he's kind of just axed out. So that leaves them with Markkanen, Portis, and Jabari Parker and Chandler Hutchinson. So, do I think Robin Lopez plays a minute? Sure. I do think Bobby Portis gets the brunt of them tonight. I'm okay with using him in all formats. I know it's literally crazy to think, but again, we let the slate dictate who we play. Sometimes it's opportunity meets, opportunity and the slate they collide, and it's kind of how I feel tonight on Portis. But I agree, it is a risky cash game play, but I'm willing to go there, and I love your Bagley call. It's only a matter of time before he's the starter and Bielitsa is just completely X'd out because Bagley is far and away better, more talented. Obviously that's why he went, second, third, fourth, whatever he went in the draft. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why he's drafted second, So I love Bagley in tournaments. More on DK because 6-1 is pretty hard to stomach for a guy, again, playing 25 minutes. But other than that, I think Richaun Holmes. Did you mention Richaun Holmes? I'm sorry if you did.
I did not.
I think he could be in play here, especially in tournaments. He's always a guy that, again, 20 minutes is all he needs to put up 30 fantasy points. He's a block expert. He has a huge size advantage over Ibaka and over Pascal Siakam. If they try to put up shots in the paint, they could be rejected. He just lurks around the paint for putbacks, for rebounds. So I like Richaun Holmes for tournaments. But other than that, do you have any more interest in anyone? Or are you ready to finish it up at center?
Well, let's do centers.
So there is just a new update on Joel Embiid, and apparently he writes for ESPN, and he put out a tweet and said Joel Embiid is still going through pregame warmups, still appears to be working through some back issues. So there's nothing official. We don't know. Knowing that we don't know, we can't play him in cash games, obviously.
Right.
If you're playing multiple lineups, Steve, let's say you personally are playing 100 lineups, right? In a $3 tournament. How many of them would you include Joel Embiid in? Let's say DraftKings because we have late swap, even though it doesn't matter because it's the early game.
5 or 10. I don't know.
5%? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think too.
I almost like that. That news almost makes me more likely to play Ben Simmons in a GPP. Just, is there a chance that Embiid only plays 15 minutes because his back is hurting and we see a vintage
Joel
Ben
Embiid will
Simmons
play.
game?
He will play.
Will play. Okay.
Will play officially.
Yeah. I just, if his back's still bothering him, maybe he's limited, maybe he doesn't make it through the whole game. In my mind, that almost makes Ben Simmons, and let me be clear, GPP only, but,
right.
Like I said, I think there's a chance that if Embiid's limited, that Simmons can go off and be lesser owned.
And Simmons has gone for 55 plus in 3 straight games with Embiid on the floor.
Right, that's true too.
Embiid or Kemba Walker in a tournament? Ben Simmons or Kemba Walker in the tournament?
Ben Simmons.
Okay. So let's just wrap it up with center. Embiid or Jokic?
Jokic.
Agreed. It's uncertain. Embiid's played through plenty of injuries in the past. I'm sure he'll be fine, but I do agree. Back injuries aren't something to mess with. He could tweak something real early and come out. Tournaments only for him. Steven Adams, I think, is too highly priced. I do love attacking Lakers centers. I do think Tyson Chandler shores up the Lakers middle a little bit, defensively at least, where he could present a few more problems with Adams. I just think 7-8 on FanDuel is just too expensive for him. There's no ceiling at 7-8, personally. I think he's fine for cash. I just don't think there's a ceiling necessarily at 7-8. Do you agree, or do you like Steven Adams?
I like Steven Adams only because even on FanDuel, I don't love the guys that are behind him. I mean, I feel exactly the same about Steven Adams as I do about Willie Cauley-Stein, so I may as well pay the extra $200 for Adams. That's the way I'm looking at it. But you're totally right as far as there isn't much of a ceiling, and there's the blowout factor. I just, I think he's solid. You're going to get what you pay for, but not much more than that.
Speaking of Willie Cauley-Stein, that's my guy tonight. And I think he's way too cheap on DraftKings. John has been all over the attack Charlotte front court all year long. And I've been more recent to the bandwagon. But, I mean, we just saw Cauley-Stein go for 40 fantasy points against them 2 games ago this past weekend. He's gone for 40 in 3 of his last 4 of his last 6 games. And, again, he's too cheap. It's just a matchup that just fits his mold. Charlotte ranks 22nd against centers. So I love Willie Cauley-Stein. All formats. I'm playing him in cash games. I'm playing him in tournaments. I do think there is some merit to DeAndre Ayton tonight, too. More tournament-based because I think Rashawn Holmes, steals minutes at times. But he's too cheap, in my opinion. Thoughts on Cauley-Stein or DeAndre Ayton, or do you have someone else in mind?
No, at that price, I think you nailed the 2 guys. I do like Cauley-Stein. I like him for cash pretty much all the time, and you made a good point about taking advantage of Charlotte's front court. And Ayton is, he's been inconsistent, but when he's good, he's good.
Right.
And as you said, his price is down. So I think people are going to be scared away for tournaments because of Toronto. So I think you get a chance to get a little bit lower ownership for Ayton as well. So I definitely agree with that call.
Right, and it's not like Serge Ibaka is a great post defender. Serge Ibaka at one time had the nickname Serge Ibaka because he blocked shots. He wasn't necessarily ever a great defender. Just because you're a good shot blocker doesn't mean you're a good defender. DeAndre Ayton is a young man with old man moves, and he is very good in the post. I think he could give Serge Ibaka a ton of issues down there. And even if who are they going to turn to that scares you? Greg Monroe? I mean, have you watched Greg Monroe try to play defense, right? So, I mean, I love Ayton for tournaments. Going down, I think Tyson Chandler is whatever. I think you could play him more on FanDuel because you could drop his score. I guess he's fine on DraftKings. There's been some chatter about Monroe. Speaking of the terrible defender himself, I get it. I get it because Ibaka doesn't play a lot of minutes on back-to-backs, and Monroe in the last back-to-back Toronto had, he did play 21 minutes, 11 points, 9 rebounds. I just don't love it. I think he is viable for tournaments, especially if it becomes a blowout, he'll get minutes, but I don't think we need to jam. I mean, he's only 3.5, so we're not jamming him in, but I don't think we need to force the issue and get Greg Monroe in there. Do you have anyone else you want to talk about?
The Plumlee, I don't even know which Plumlee's in Denver.
Mason.
they're like the Weasley children from Harry Potter. They're all the same. So Mason Plumlee is interesting. He might play if it's a blowout, and we've talked about how bad Chicago's front court is. And then if I knew he was starting, I think you're probably right about Portis, but if I knew Robin Lopez was starting, I would look at playing him as well.
Yep, I can get behind that because, a free center, honestly, that's the position isn't great. So I tend to agree with you on Robin Lopez. But that does wrap it up. 23 minutes until lock. Lineups aren't out yet, but they are. The Lowry news really threw everything for a loop. So, I've been reworking them during the live stream, but they will be out shortly. Look for them around 6:45. Steve, thank you for joining. Matt Sells behind the glass and behind the screens, behind the whatever you want to call it. Thank you for producing behind the curtain as well. For Steve and I, we are out. Good luck to everyone. Catch you in live chat.
Good night.